take weekly pre and post tests. You are going to be writing a one-page single-space paper a week. And you are going to be answering basically what I call justifications. It's basically 4 short essays. I'll talk a little bit about more. That is another page each week. So they are writing 2 single-page papers a week. They are taking aplia, which I don't know if many of you know. It's Cengages. At the end of each chapter, they have some exercises that they think help students. And they have one of those for each chapter. And I told them they have to come to class on Tuesday with a typed question. So, this is what I said the first day. They really liked no midterm final. They didn't all understand the implications, but they quickly found out. So, let me go over it. There's 1 or 2 chapters a week because we're doing 23 chapters. It's the entire NQ macro text. The chapter pretest is due on Tuesday at 2 p.m. My class is Tuesday, Thursday at 3. So they have to take the pretest before class. They can take it up to twice. The pretest, post-test, and practice test, so there's practice tests out there, have about 400 questions in them. So they're the entire chapter test bank from NQ. I have it divided into sections so I can make sure that they are getting so many questions from each section. So as a result, on a chapter, it is 10 questions. So if they're doing 2 chapters, they have 10 questions on one and 10 questions on the other. Okay? They are given 15 minutes to do the test. That's it. Totally timed. They are absolutely told from day one they cannot work with any other person. If I find out that they are, I will submit their name to academic misconduct with a recommendation to expel from the university, not suspend. So nobody may listen to me, but it will be my recommendation. Yes?
Are the pretest and the post-test the same?
Out of the 400 questions, yes. Okay, but there's no way out of 400 questions that they are memorizing the material. I mean, it just can't be. They're allowed to take a pretest twice and a post-test twice. They can take the practice test as many times as they want. It's the same test. Right now, the average student is probably taking the practice test once. I have some taking it as many as 4 or 5 times. Nobody can take the pre or post test more than twice. Most are averaging, I would call it 1.5. That is, there's some who take twice, lots who take it once.
Is there a chapter-specific practice every week when you say a practice test?
Yes.
And that one, okay, and that's got a fixed set of questions, basically?
No.
Oh, even that one's random?
Same 400
okay.
questions.
Okay.
And if there's 2 chapters, there's 400 and 400. And they are strictly, if they want to do it or not, it's up to them. I could care less. Now, I had to motivate them to make sure they took the pretest. The motivation was very simple. You get 50% on the pretest. I will count the post-test fully if it's higher, which of course it will be. If you get under 50%, I take the average of the 2. Okay, and 50% is a 1.5 or something like that in my class. It's passing, but barely. And it certainly isn't good enough for the School of Business. So as a result, they are motivated. Right now, out of the students who are taken, I typically have 36, oh, you don't know this yet, 36 students left. 4 have never showed up, so who knows where they are. But the other 32, I probably have about 4 who don't get over 50%. So they are taking, they understand why they want to do it.
When you say 50%, what does it mean? Do you deduct basically wrong I mean, is the number of answers correct?
Number correct, out of 10, out of 10 questions.
And how many choices do they have per question?
It's whatever ManQ gives them. ManQ usually gives 4.
Of course, I guess.
But on the other hand, having given these questions before, just as part of a test, along with other things, I know that overall students probably, once they've studied it, everything, average about 65% on these questions. Some are very hard, and some are obviously trivial. But it's the whole variety of them, and lots of them have graphs.
Does ManQ have feedback on what are good scores?
They do on Applia, and therefore on Applia, which they have to take by Sunday, they go and they are usually about 20 to 25 fill in the blanks, most of them are, and they put in their thing, and Applia grades it and then evaluates their bad answer and gives them feedback so that they can retake it again. And Applia allows them to retake it 3 times, and I had no trouble with that. And their average Applia grade is around 3.4, 3.5.
What I mean is what's the national averages for those?
I have no idea. I've never asked ManQ. ManQ may know, or Cengage may know. I have no clue. I just know when I've used them in the past, and they've been studying for the exams, I was getting about 65% from the students on average. That in my grading became a C basically. So they weren't overwhelmingly blowing it away or anything. And so now on the pretest, when they haven't done anything, they have to get over 50, and they are. There's only one chapter, 2 chapters that they didn't get over 50, and I told them that this is the hardest 2 chapters in the book, and it's on international exchange rates. And I don't know if many of you know ManQ, but he does it the difficult way. It's correct, but it's a 3-quadrant graph. It's very serious. And they average way less than they usually do. I think over half the class didn't get 50%. But it was the only one so far that's happened to. Most of them, as I said, there's about 4. Okay? At the end of the week, they take the post-test. Again, they can take it up to twice. And as long as they were over 50%, I take the post-test. If the pre-test is higher, I take the average. They just don't get the higher. They would get the average. At midterms, when I graded just the exams, I found that of my 32 students who are participating, as I said, 4 I've never seen, almost half had a 4-point. Now, that may mean, God, is this great, or God, is this easy? I understand that. So, I also have lots of other things that I require. Applia is one of them. I also require them to, every week I give them 4 true-false questions that if it's false they have to correct. Whichever it is, true or after it's corrected, they have to justify why this is the reasoning behind it. Those explanations must be, the 4 of them, 1 single-space page, 1-inch margin, 12-point font, single-space, and if they don't follow the rules, they get a 0. First couple, we had some problems. After that, I've had no problems. I've caught their attention, and they are following the rules. Okay? Those justifications are at least 3/4 of a grade higher this semester than they have been in the past. And I've been doing this for years. So I have a long history with these. And they're different questions all the time. So it's not like, oh, they're out there or something. And so I'm really happy with what I'm seeing there. Each week I go and I grade one of the four. I go over all four in class. I ask for them to get volunteer to have me read their answer in front of the whole class. I give them a grade. If it's bad, I say it's bad. I mean, it's just the way it is. If I read it quickly and see it's totally wrong, I'll say, I'm not going to grade it. I'm not going to use this one because it's totally off base. And I take another volunteer. If I don't get a volunteer, I pick one at random, take the name off so they don't know who it is, and I read it. And we evaluate it. So they've seen, every week, they see four answers evaluated. They see what good ones are. I talk about them. This takes a good half hour a week when I do this on Tuesdays. In addition, so those are doing better than normal. So I'm very pleased with that. Certainly not half the class getting 4.7, not even close to that. I also have 6 right experience papers. Does anybody know what right experience is? No. Right experience is a outside vendor that Cengage uses that has developed a scenario for each of Mancu's 10 principles. Remember, his principles are the first chapter. They say this is the most important things in economics. So they've developed a scenario for each one of these. I pick which ones we are going to do. I start with week 2, 3, 4, then we do the Wall Street Journal, but they are spread through the semester. The average grade on the right experiences is a 3-point. The right experience is relentless because it won't put up with spelling errors, it won't put up with grammatical errors. It wants comprehensive examples and a number of them. Students complain and MBAs complain. All they want is quantity and using the economic terms. I said, probably true. That's exactly what they're looking for. They want you to show us a number of examples, how they relate, and that you use economics in your answer.
Run this by me again. This is all done on a computer. You have a
This is
computer.
done on the computer.
Okay, so.
And it's graded automatically.
Graded for you, okay.
Just like GMAT and SAT were graded. Same exact type of software. Okay? I have looked at my papers coming from it. I don't really have a problem. One student in the MBA was furious with it because it came back and said, it sounds like you are maybe an ESL student, and you should probably. And he was an actual U.S. student. And I read the paper, and his misuse of articles was what it did. And we all know a lot of foreign languages don't have articles. And so I was more gentler, but I said, you know, the point is you aren't using your articles correctly. He improved a lot.
I was reading a comic novel, but in it, it's treated as common knowledge that employers want students to write better. And so it's really nice to hear that you're doing it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I think writing is so important. And you'll hear more about right experience later. If you don't buy the book, it's about $120 for the students, but if you buy the book, it's about 10 or 15. So I have them get the book online. And I negotiate my own price with Cengage, that they get aptly right experience and the textbook. And I tell them the alternative is this is what I'm going to do. And I talk to Sherry, who's the rep. The rep goes to the company, and they give me a good price. This last year, for all 3 parts of it, was $109. online, electronic text, but good price. So I was very happy with it. If they wanted the hard copy, the bookstore had it, and it was running around $20 more, because they had to make their own markup. And I said, if I was you, I would buy the one at the bookstore, because you can sell the book for that much, but in addition, you have a hard copy. But maybe it's because I'm old and I like hard copies. They like it when I call myself old. So that went and said, yeah, they're doing pretty well. They did almost as well as the MBAs. MBAs did a little better, but not a whole lot better. The other thing I then have is, once we've gone through about 5 weeks of the course, yes,
By MBAs, you mean students who are doing the same material and then MBA?
before you came, I did a similar thing in my 501 MBA class in the fall. So those are the ones I'm talking about.
Call them MBAs.
Yes. Okay. I guess they were almost MBAs. They were almost entering the MBA program, because this was a prerequisite to enter it. I also have Wall Street Journal articles that they have to pick their own article. It has to be a major article. They have to take the first half of the page to summarize the article, and the last half of the page to analyze it using an economics graph. So they have to attach a graph. They have to show how this article used economics and how the analysis is with a graph. So they know it by this time, supply and demand, world trade, production possibilities, curves, few other things at first is all they knew. So that's why I had to wait at least into the 5th week before they knew enough to do anything. Many of them didn't like this as much because they had to, A, look at the Wall Street Journal to find the appropriate article. You just couldn't pick one at random because you might not know how to analyze it. So they did that, and the time that they took to do the Wall Street Journal article, on average, was longer than to take the right experience by about a half hour, and I'll have something on timing later on. Yeah.
So every week they either had right experience or Wall Street, so they were writing a page
In addition to
more
the,
justification?
yes,
Okay.
2 pages a week writing. Nationally, there was a recent study that found that juniors, on average, had written only 12 double-spaced pages in total during their entire college career. Sad. That's all I could say. So,
You know who they're competing against, like the Europeans? The German girls that came here told me they have to frequently write 20-page papers, single space.
oh yeah, I have no question about it. I am absolutely committed to writing.
We did that too, Miss Tracy, the same.
And-
Miss Tracy was the same way.
And right experience eases my burden a little, because now 6 of them are done. Of the 6 Wall Street Journal, I have them do one week, one the other week. I make sure they did all the directions, had a graph, did that, but I only grade 1 of them. So each week, each one, of the 2, I grade 1. So of the 6, I only grade 3. Again, trying to ease my burden a little bit. But all 6 writing experiences are graded. And I give them the feedback of the first 2 before 3 and 4 are due, and I give them the feedback on 3 and 4 before 5 and 6 are due. And I have them set up so that I have enough time to grade, because obviously they take more time to grade. Yes?
Do you also correct for grammatical mistakes and things?
No, I
like
don't
that?
correct. I get 2 of them and I give them a 0. No correction. I circle it, 0. That's it, done.
Even if they are right on substance?
I don't care. I say, if you turn a piece of crap into your boss is not going to be impressed. Students at OU, regardless of what you think, know how to write, but they don't want to take the time to do it because they know that they're not going to be bummed for it. I tell them from day one, right experience will put up with it. I won't put up with it. So don't hand me a piece of crap. I even do that in my stats class. If you give me a piece of crap, couple misspellings, 0. I don't care about separate or affect, you use the wrong one. I understand some of those things, but, you know, I'm sorry, there's no excuse. I tell them, even with Right Experience, to write it in Word first and then paste it in. So you have all of the editing facilities in there. And Right Experience has facilities. Right Experience tells them what a good paper is. It gives them the rubric. It shows them a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6, and it grades it in tenths. In theory, a 6. I've only seen 2 6s. They're really hard to get. To my mind, if they get a 5, I equate that to getting a 4 point on the assignment, because the 5s are hard. But anyway, so they have a lot of writing to do. I then, each week, because I have to have them engaged in class, they have to write a question. It must be typed. It must be uploaded by 2 o'clock on Tuesday. So it's an hour before class, so they're not doing it at the last minute. Maybe at the last minute at 1:57, but it's not the last minute before my class. Many of them use things from the pretest. That's fine. It's worth up to 3 or 4 points. A good question is worth 2. No question from the pretest is worth more than 1, though. So if you just copy a question from the pretest, yeah, you've done it, but you only get 1 point. Now, because I require that they follow my directions, that everything be single-spaced, that everything, most of that stuff I put into, quote, effort. But effort for my class is way different than most classes. So if you follow all the directions, you do the questions that I ask, and you average more than a 2, it goes into positive effort. You average less than 2, it goes into negative effort. In my syllabus, I say, if at the end of the semester, I do not deem your effort sufficient, your grade can be reduced up to a full grade. If your effort is deemed as exceptional, your grade can be raised up to a half a grade. So as a result, they know that following the directions, effort is being counted in all sorts of different ways. So as a result, I don't have to have a percentage of my, 3% on effort, you know what that means, nothing. This all of a sudden means something, half a grade or a full grade, it can change their grade. Now, the only way it would ever be a full grade is if somebody was a screw-up totally. I wouldn't do that. But they don't actually know what it is, and I have enough of a reputation of being a bastard that they're not going to take a chance. So as a result, I have all of this. They got to come to class on Tuesday with a typed question. I ask them, okay, who wants to go and read a question after we've gone over the homework? And they go and they raise their hand. If they raise their hand, I have them read their question. I answer it, I elaborate on it, and I take their paper, I give them an extra bonus point for volunteering. And we keep going until I'm out. Nobody answers, and then I say, anybody else? Okay, here's the seating chart. Bill Smith, you read yours. You don't get the extra point, though, because you didn't volunteer. And they have them in front of them, so they do it. I collect them on Tuesday after class. I usually grade them, it's not always at that point. I scan them through the scanner. So I now have a record of them. I hand them back to them on Thursday's class so they can do this again if they haven't answered a question. So I have 2 classes of answering their questions. I already know what I want to add to the class that's not in the textbook, so it's pretty easy for me to take their answer and say, oh, let me expand on this a little bit. And the justifications are almost all based on my class. Things that are not in the textbook, most of them, not all, but most. Therefore, they know the importance of coming to class. So, yes,
You mentioned, as you were going to say that you do those questions after we go over the homework. So is the homework something other than
the
what is up there?
justifications are what I call the homework.
That's okay.
The justifications are what I call it. So, I did the midterm evaluation and it blew me away. 32 students are coming to class regularly, 12 have a 4-point. I usually give 1 or 2. 20 students are at a 3-point or above, it's usually around 9. 4 students who are coming to class are below a 2-point. Only 4. Average is about 3.2, it's usually about 2.7. I said department policy is a 2.6 to 3-point. I said, I'll take care of this, don't worry. I have enough of a reputation, nobody's going to question it. Justifications are over 3/4 of a grade higher than past classes, and since I've been doing this for years, I have a good database. Performance totally surprised me. I hadn't been looking at grades, I haven't cared. I said, holy shit. I told my son this, and he said, Dad, if this was anybody else, I'd say you are grading to the, make this work. But I know you well enough, there's no way you would do that. So I asked a question and said, I need to know why. So I gave them a survey. No name. Normally when I collect papers, I'm in the 200s of Varner. So I have the whole class in front of me here. And I have them pass them to the center aisle, and I just pick them up. But I could tell there's 3 to 6 people in a class, in a row. So I said, in this case, I want them all passed down, mixed together, so I have no idea who you are, because I could care less. I want honesty. You don't like something, tell me. I'm not promising you I'll make a change, but I guarantee you I don't want to know who you are. I want honesty. Okay? So, I did that. I had, it was open, as usual, very few wrote anything on the open part, but I had a number of questions. I had a suspicion of why performance was doing well, but it was just a suspicion. This is what I found. They were averaging 2.5 hours of reading the textbook. I'm lucky usually if I get a half hour. They're averaging 30 minutes per chapter to do apnea. They're averaging 1.5 hours per week doing the test, because that's pre-test, post-test, and there can be 1 or 2 chapters. They're each 15 minutes, but nonetheless it adds up. They're taking about 1.5 hours to write the justifications. They're averaging about 1.5 hours per week writing papers. A little more for the Wall Street Journals than the Right Experience. And look at this average, 7.5 hours outside of class. So why are they doing well? Because they're studying. They are doing what we always say you should do. This has nothing to do with me. I have just organized a class that they have no choice but to do what they're supposed to do. And I don't know if this is what a real classroom is supposed to be, but boy, am I excited. I asked some other type of questions. They found the textbook most important for the post-test, followed by class and apnea. It surprised me that the class was even as high as it was, since I don't try to address these things. They found the class most helpful for the justifications, I don't know why the apostrophe is there, followed by the textbook.
Throw the slide out.
They don't like display papers. Because I said, is there one thing you would eliminate? It was either Right Experience or Wall Street Journal. I think Right Experience edged it out, but They really would have liked one less of that. And this is the one that blew me away. 2/3 of the students said they would recommend me to take Econ 202 from me. I said, you've got to be kidding. Because I asked them if they study about the same as other classes, a little more or a lot more. 2/3 of them say, way more, way more. Apparently, in first year advising, students are coming in there who've had me. And they're telling the advisors in first year advising, they love my class, it's a lot of work, but they know where they are and they know that they control everything. If they want to go and do well, it's in their control. That's true of every class. But for some reason, a traditional midterm and final scares the shit out of them. And they don't believe they have control. The fact, and because these are weekly all the time, and smaller bits, they seem to accept it better. I don't know. Please understand, I'm a person who believes in midterms and finals. So the idea of this said, boy, I don't know, am I cheating my students by not giving them midterm and final? And after I keep looking at all the things I require them to do, I said, no, you're not. You are really not cheating them. But I have a big drop rate, even bigger than normal. And I understand why, so there's a selection bias here to some extent. Roughly, most of these students are freshmen and sophomore. There's one post-baccalaureate, there's a couple juniors. About 2/3 are business students, 1/3 are taking it as gen ed. Generally because it's required of their major, but it's not generally a gen ed class that they say, oh, this sounds like a good one to fulfill global. That's about all I have to say. On the other hand, I can go on and on and on if you have questions. As I said, I am so excited about this. I cannot get over what I'm observing. And I truly have an N of 2 MBAs and now this one. And so I am not about to go and suggest anything dramatic yet. But when I continue doing this and I keep seeing this kind of thing, I am just going to, I would have hated to take this myself, my course. And it's because I am a procrastinator. You can't procrastinate in this. No way at all. You're dead. You're absolutely dead. Yes and then yes.
It would seem to me that this would be an ideal class for online because, one, the exams are gone, but the writing is there and a lot of stuff they're doing is already online, right, experience, etc. So that if we were going to put a class online, this would work.
Yes, except I would have to either put in mini lectures or I would have to put in videos to go and take care of the justification so that they are more than the thing.
Yes.
And part of me likes talking to classes. I enjoy that portion. That's the portion I always have liked about teaching. Grading, I'm not excited about
My
grading.
comment wasn't specific to you, but
Yes.
I'm saying this idea.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And the blended class worked well because times when they had to do their justifications, I told them each one of them had a different 2 to post. The other 2, they had to comment on the postings of others. So they still had all 4 of them, and yet there was some forcing you to read others. And I made it very clear, you better be critical if it's bad, because I grade it, and you see what kind of grade you get, and it just won't be very good. So it's up to you what you do. But, and at first they hem-hawed around, but then they knew they had to. But these were MBAs, a little bit more mature students. And as I said, overall, they liked it. And I don't know, I have a new respect for students because so many of them we always think of as lazy. And I'm totally relentless in this class. and I get no pushback. Now, I'm not one that gives the impression, oh, why don't you push back on me? But I'm getting no pushback. I have withdrawals. But
So the drop rate was almost 50%.
46 to 36,
Not terribly unusual.
a little
Just-
high.
Just a thought, if you could possibly experiment in one of your future courses, at least with a mini midterm or a mini final, just to compare with the test
Well,
format you had
All
previously.
Econ 202 students take a 30-question post-test at the end of the semester.
Mhm,
All of them.
mhm, mhm.
That is going to be my thing.
Okay,
where I-
that's
Which
what
one are you talking about? You were quite aware of the twos, is that what you mean?
No, this isn't TOOS. This is questions from Mankiw and Hubbard's textbook that we put together into different things.
Have you entertained the idea of using a standardized national test? See how you're doing compared to the nation?
That's interesting. No, I haven't. And I certainly have, I'm familiar with TOOS, used at SIU all the time for doing some things. But no, I have not. And that is certainly something worth considering, because then you do have a national norm. You'd have to take the pre-test and then the post-test, so you could see
True.
where our students are to begin with and where they are at the end.